Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Straight Shooter Wrestling Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Santi, here with my other co-host, Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Not too bad, Santi. I hope you had a good week. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we're back for a round 2. We made it. 1 week. We're still alive as a wrestling podcast.
Hey man, let's just say the people that came and watched everything on YouTube, followed and gave some likes and shared it around, definitely appreciate it, guys. Keep it up if you want to see us continue and go past these 5 episodes. We had some really good communication from everyone over the past week, so personally I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to extend those that gratitude as well to everybody that watched. Obviously, it's more fun to do these types of things when people are listening, and we do have some engagement happening on both YouTube and the Discord. And the sentiment seems to be that we did a pretty good job for our first episode. So hopefully, we don't fuck it up from here on out.
Let's pray.
Let's pray. All right, Steve, we've got quite a bit on our docket today. We're going to start off with some viewer questions. We'll roll right into some relevant wrestling news, and then we'll finish off with our topic of the show as always, which is, tell us, Steve, what is our topic of the show?
Today's topic of the show, like I said last week, episode 2, WWE versus AEW. Is this the new wrestling war? Can't wait to hear what Santi has to think about it and what the viewers in the comments have to think.
Yeah, and unlike the last the last topic of the show, we've purposely left this one really vague so we can just sort of talk about the whole concept of WWE versus AEW. Whatever is going to come out, nothing is pre-planned. Unlike the other one where we had lists and things that we'd curated that we'd come with, this is just going to be more so of a free flow discussion. But let's start off with a fun question here from over one of our Discord listeners. Christian asks, Steve, what is one WrestleMania main event that you would change? I found this one interesting because there's a lot. Personally, yeah. I feel like there's a lot. I'm just curious if there is one in specific that stands out to you that you would change. Now, before you answer that, you know what? I'm just going to give you creative freedom. I was going to say, you know what? You have to pick a different match from that same card. No, whatever. If you want to make your own fantasy main event for that WrestleMania, I want to hear it.
Okay, so first off, I can't remember if this was a main event. I don't believe it was, but I think we should just wash this one away. Like the streak, Taker Brock.
It wasn't. That was the Daniel Bryan main event.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Perfect. Then I'm not even going to worry about that match. I'm actually going to go on to 2 of them. And the 2 that come to my mind that I was really disappointed with, the first one was Rock Austin's farewell match.
Mania 19?
Yeah.
But that wasn't a main event.
What was the main event?
That was Lesnar Kurt Angle.
Oh, okay. Then I'll keep going with it.
Okay, keep going.
Two reasons for this. One, if it wasn't a main event, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. It should have been.
Okay.
Simple as that. Don't care if it was Lesnar. Don't care how hot he was. Don't care about Angle. Austin should have had a main event for his farewell. Secondly, I think Austin still should have gone over and then kind of did his own thing and like walked off into the sunset, kind of the way that Brett wanted to do Survivor Series, and Vince wouldn't let him do it.
Steve.
I would have preferred to see that. My other one was...
Don't go into your other one. I have some thoughts on that. Are you really going to let The Rock go 0-3 against Stone Cold Steve Austin in your fantasy scenario?
Yes.
Come on, man. The Rock deserved that. All right. No. Okay. I mean, this is your fantasy scenario. I won't change it.
Hey, my fantasy scenario, I'm going to run with it. Second one, and I will stand to this, and any argument you come back with, I don't care who the people in the match were and what celebrity status they held. The triple threat, Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda, should never have been a triple threat. It should have been Becky Charlotte.
100%. Yeah.
Or it should have been Becky Ronda.
I think it's Becky Ronda all day. It's Becky Ronda because we had that buildup that should have been that amazing Survivor Series match that got axed because of Nia Jax being a terrible worker and breaking Becky's nose. And we got that awesome shot of Becky Crimson mask. It should have been Becky, Ronda Rousey. You're 100% right.
Yeah, and honestly, but if it wasn't for Nia, we can go to this other scenario. If it wasn't for Nia, the man doesn't come back, right?
Yeah.
Or doesn't become the man. So I would say 100%. You can tear apart my Rock Austin one, but that main event, the build up for 6 months
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, it was long. It was long.
That build up is a one-on-one.
Yeah.
It's a standard match. No triple threat, and go figure. I think the finish was a botch.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a botch. It definitely was a botch.
So for me, those are my two.
Okay, I got a couple. All right,
Okay.
so I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll boil it down to one. No, this is a podcast. We can go longer. This isn't like a 5-minute YouTube video. We can talk. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw out some obvious ones. All right. Taker Michaels Mania 25 should have been the main event. It was one of those like, could we have really known how amazing and special that match would have been? Granted, it was Taker Michaels. Yeah, you probably should have assumed it was going to be amazing. But with it not being the main event, it really killed the rest of the show because everything after that just couldn't live up to it. And also doesn't help that Randy Orton versus Triple H just kind of was a bit of a letdown. So we needed to let those two just there was no roof, blow the stadium up with just like a clinical 5-star match. And unfortunately, we didn't get it as the main event.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of ones that just like I'm not trying to change the card yet. I'm trying to just rearrange. Another one that I'll rearrange for the exact same reason because it killed the crowd was Rock Hogan Mania 18. It was just what's that?
Skydome, right?
Yeah, Skydome. Yeah. So that's Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That match killed the crowd because everyone was just over the moon, going absolutely bananas over that match. That once again, Triple H, the one who just can't catch a break with these. Triple H versus Chris Jericho just could not revive the crowd. So again, no. I'm trying to not change the main event here. In terms of changing main events, I had Becky versus Ronda Rousey as one of those ones where I do feel like it should have been the main event. The other one that just sort of is creeping into my head right now is not so much a changing of the card, but just like this shouldn't have been the title match at all. That fatal 4-way, I believe it was Mania 17, Big Show, Foley. I can't even remember everyone that was on it, where everybody had a McMahon in the corner. Do you remember this?
Wait, was that the end of the the WCW, ECW, WWE thing?
It was around that space. It's killing me right now that I cannot remember everybody that was in that fatal 4-way main event, but it should not have been the main event. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Mania 17 was Rock Austin.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking 16. Maybe I'm thinking 16. I'm going to need you to just double check that for me.
I'm doing a quick Google right now.
I think it's 16 because I just think that that's one of the first Manias that I watched. And even I was just like, why is this main eventing my screen right now? It should absolutely not have been the main event. Honestly, at that point, you could have put just about any other match on there. And I feel like it would have been a better main event. Do you have that?
Oh, again, Triple H.
It was
Triple H, Rock, Big Show, and Foley.
Yeah, I know exactly where I was going with this. That should have just been Triple H Rock. It should have just been Triple H Rock. For I don't understand the reason. The problem that I have with that main event, it was that the McMahons were the storyline, not the wrestlers, not the title. It was the McMahons, and that's great. Obviously, the McMahon name super important. It's a legacy with not just in WWE but the entirety of the business. Come on, you should not be hogging the main event spotlight for Linda McMahon and Stephanie and sure shit not Shane. The best in the world.
Here's my thing on that. If you want to have a family feud, go on the show. Don't go on to the WrestleMania main event. Like this. They did well with who owns what, and I don't really remember the storyline, but if I'm thinking correctly, it had to do with something ECW, WCW, WWE, Vince with too much power, blah, 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 blah. I can't remember what that whole storyline was. But WrestleMania, it's in the name. It's wrestling. Now, I know wrestling is a bad word to Vince, and you can't really say it on WWE television anymore, but it's WrestleMania. You're here to watch professional wrestling, and at that point, you're focusing too much on what became sports entertainment.
Yeah.
And I really think if it's a main event of WrestleMania, you need to go back to grassroots. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of debate that the title should also be the main event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it just also, I feel like it just depends too. Like, I feel like when there's things on the line, like when it was Taker Sean for, streak versus career, like there's things that sometimes are greater than the title. So, but I too am somewhat of a purist. I would like to see the title in the main event. Someone should also just sort of explain that to CM Punk, because he was just always so upset that he was never on the final match of WrestleMania. But homie, you defended the title against Chris Jericho. That's a main event. You fought against the streak. That's a main event. It just wasn't the final card. The final match in the card.
The final one.
Yeah. So I mean, now main event at WrestleMania just means different things too, considering now it's 2 nights. What was the main event last WrestleMania? Was it Bianca Sasha, or was it the triple threat Roman, Daniel Bryan, and Edge? Like there were 2 technically that finished the show. But yeah.
Hey, you know what? How about that one? How about we put that in the comments for tonight, for today's episode? What was the main event officially for last year's WrestleMania? Answer in the comments. Was it Sasha versus Bianca, or was it Roman, Daniel Bryan, and who else was in it?
Edge.
Edge, that's it.
No, like, it's the real main event was Bad Bunny. I don't even care who else was in that match. Bad Bunny was the main event of WrestleMania 37. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I remember we were sitting together for that one, right?
Yeah.
And Bad Bunny decides to do a Canadian Destroyer,
Dude,
and
I lost my mind.
You and I hit the roof.
We lost our minds.
I'm pretty sure like everyone in my apartment building heard that. So that was insane. All right, I do have a question. I'm going to flip this over to you, Santi.
Sure.
Now, some people say this is the greatest cash-in of all time. This is one of the greatest surprises at WrestleMania of all time. Seth Rollins cashing in right at the end. Roman Brock. Would you change that?
No.
And there's a reason I asked that.
Okay, let's hear your reason.
The reason I asked that is because, yes, the pop was amazing, and I'm all about the pop, and I'm a massive Seth Rollins fan. But could that not have been done differently? Maybe the Monday Night Raw, or maybe do it earlier in the match, kind of like what they did with the Fatal 4-Way ladder match, and had the Hardys come out as a surprise, and make it a triple threat type thing. Like, would you change it? I'm not saying I would. I'm just open to discussion on it.
Yeah, so like I wouldn't change it, especially like I'm thinking like WWE is a little bit different now, but back then they were very much of the mind when it came to WrestleMania, send the crowd home happy. Mm-hmm. And I think back as to how tired people were of Brock Lesnar not being on television. That's kind of when it started. How upset people were that they were being shoved Roman Reigns down their throat. I don't know if you remember Philadelphia just absolutely booing the ever living hell out of both Roman and The Rock. The Rock doesn't get booed. All right. Mm-hmm. So there was no sending the crowd home happy. And I think that was the best audible, to send out Seth Rollins and just send, if it wasn't sending the people home happy, sending them home with something that's buzzworthy and something worth talking about. So I think it's the right call.
Completely agree. And I remember the Monday Night Raw after that, those full-time chants went forever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that opening segment was 25 minutes.
Right.
Like for that Monday Night Raw, and it was just full-time chant. And I loved it. Every second of it. So, no, I just wanted to throw that one out there because I have heard a couple of people say like, oh, they would have changed it this way. They would have changed it this way. I don't think I would have changed it. I agree with you on how you brought it across, but it's just a question.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of questions, let's move on to another one. We've got another question from one of our listeners, and you too can leave your questions over on our Discord page, which is in the description here of the YouTube video under the pro wrestling section of the Discord. He asks, first, how much do you know about New Japan Pro Wrestling, and who would you like to see come over from New Japan Pro Wrestling? Let me take this one because I'm going to be real quick. What do I know about New Japan Pro Wrestling? Very little, very little. It's funny. I've actually since the departure of AJ Styles, I've known less about New Japan. I was following New Japan quite closely when it was like the reign of the Bullet Club, right? You had Prince Devitt, you had who's now Finn Balor, you had AJ Styles, you had the Good Brothers, you had Kenny Omega was in the club, you had the oh my goodness, the Shawn Michaels wannabes from AEW. I keep forgetting their name.
Oh my god, it'll come to me.
I can't remember.
The twin brothers.
Yes,
yeah.
I can't believe I can't remember their names right
Nick
now.
And Matt Jackson. Matt Jackson.
Yeah. Yes. So that I was following that very closely, and I started following it even more closely because I'm sure you remember that was kind of the heyday of when like everyone was going to NXT. If you were anybody from any other promotion that was building a name for themselves, you were appearing on NXT TakeOver on the front row, and the camera would pan to you, right? And that was our confirmation. All right, boom, this person's coming to NXT. You know, before the this person to AEW confirmed jokes, it was this person to NXT confirmed jokes. Those were the thing back in 2015, 2016. So I was following it really, really close just to see like, okay, what talent is out there? Who is coming over to NXT? But once NXT kind of raided the entirety, the majority of the New Japan roster, I should also toss out there Shinsuke Nakamura. I started to lose interest, and I gained a little bit more interest when Chris Jericho went over there for a little while, but I wasn't so much interested in New Japan. I was more so interested in Chris Jericho. What is this? What is this dad doing over there right now? And he is just killing it, putting on slobber knockers in the Tokyo Dome. But since the pandemic, pretty much watched none. No New Japan Pro Wrestling. What I will say is that if I were to bring somebody over just to see the dream matches, it's a simple answer for me. I would just pick Okada. Just like in terms of a technical worker, you could probably put him in the top 5 on the planet right now. I know that Dave Meltzer has a complete hard-on for this man and gives this man's matches 8 out of 5 stars, which, Meltzer, that doesn't make any sense, all right? That doesn't make any sense. It's a 5-star system. Anyways, I digress. I bring him over. Think about the amazing matches he would have with the likes of Brock Lesnar. I love me some Brock Lesnar, but Seth Rollins, Big E right now. I would put him up against somebody like that just clashes. Someone like a McIntyre. I feel like there's just so many dream matches that are available for somebody like Okada in WWE, but there's also these like technical meshes of worlds that would be available in WWE that he might not necessarily be getting in New Japan, because New Japan is very, very, strong style and hard hitting. Like, but WWE, like the showmanship of it, I feel like Okada would blend in beautifully.
So I'm gonna actually hit back at that because I originally did think Okada. I looked at let me go the different way. What do I know about New Japan? I read the Reddit streams, I read the dirt sheets on New Japan, who's performing well. Honestly, when this question came up, I had to actually go to the website to actually see who's actually still on their roster.
Who's still there, because you can be anywhere now. You could be anywhere.
Exactly. Especially, I mentioned to you before we got started that, like, with the new open door policy, with what AEW did is bringing everyone together, and there's no fourth wall type thing. These guys, there's all AEW guys on the roster on the New Japan website. So, like, you just don't know. So if I was to pick anyone, it would, and I'm saying strictly because I know it happened earlier this year, but if I'm saying strictly coming to WWE, I got to get Jay White.
Yeah.
Jay White, I'm a big Bullet Club guy. I think a lot of the leaders past leaders, minus Kenny Omega, have at least made an appearance in WWE now. Well, we've got Finn, who was head as Prince Devitt. We've got AJ, and obviously I think Jay White's bruiser style, but still his technical style. What you were saying about Okada, there is no not able to mesh. Jay White can come in and do a match with anyone. He can come up against McIntyre. He can come up against Big E. He can go against AJ. He could go, hell, throw him in there with Omos. I'm sure there'd be like some kendo sticks and some tables. You know what I mean?
No, Omos would just stand there menacingly and win.
But no, so for me, it would be Jay White. And the reason and this is nothing against the Japanese performers, I find that they get lost in the shuffle when they come to WWE. One thing that is notoriously known is Vince is not a fan of a performer if their English is not good. Look at Shinsuke, look at Asuka. Two perfect examples, easily two of the top performers in the business in WWE right now, and they are lost in a mid-card shuffle or off TV right now because their English is terrible.
What do you mean? You don't enjoy seeing Shinsuke Nakamura versus Happy Corbin for 17 straight weeks?
I enjoy Pat McAfee during Shinsuke's entrance more than I enjoy that storyline.
I think we all love Pat McAfee. That's a good point. And to Vince's defense, I mean, this is showmanship. Like, if you can't cut a promo and connect with the local audience, it's tough to be able to put you in a spotlight. So I doubt that it's a a Japanese thing or a foreign. I really do believe it is just like you can't cut a promo and connect with people if you can't speak the language. So I just want to come out to the defense of Vince just real quick on that one, because I mean, I get it. I understand it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not just like you said, it's not just the Japanese performers. The exact same thing happened with Neville. Neville has a very thick Northwestern English accent. He's a Geordie. I don't even understand them, and my family's from about 4 hours away. Like, it's a very, very difficult accent to understand, and Vince didn't want him on the mic because he couldn't understand him.
Yeah.
So it's simple as that. It's just, yes, I understand Vince's point, but bringing over people from New Japan is a big struggle, especially if their English isn't that good.
Yeah, it's interesting how New Japan doesn't have that problem the other way around. It's a very different business model. You can just go over there as a gaijin, as they call it, a foreigner, and be able to just win everyone over purely on your work, because over there, like, they don't stand up and cheer, they clap. It is very much a sport where the audience respects the work that is happening in the ring more so than the showmanship and the character. Of course, that just naturally goes alongside with it. But it is very contrasting ways that the audience, I don't want to say that the businesses are different, because at the end of the day, what makes money is what people will go with. It just seems that in stateside, Canada, and all in this side of the world, what connects with people is character more so than in-ring work, while in Japan, it's in-ring work that makes the connection with the audience. So it's interesting to point out and see.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. Like, if you look at the Jericho Omega rivalry, I'm sorry, you put that in New York in an open stadium, and those guys tear the building down and the fans go mental. Like, you can't hear anything. In Japan, I was watching that one. It was one of the first ones I actually ever watched, and I'm like, why are these fans not excited?
They're quiet.
And it was bugging me.
I'm
like, this is not what these two deserve. But it was also in the Japanese culture, they understood what they were getting, because the people were on literally the edge of their seats, just in awe of what these guys were doing. So yeah, no, you make a great point on that one.
Yeah. All right. So I think that that kind of just about answers Kevlar's questions. Again, if you have any questions, please pop over to Discord and write us in, and we will pick some questions that make sense to the show. Now let's move on to some news. Now, we had somebody from our Discord named Rebel on a Mission bring this one up to our attention because it is somewhat breaking news. The news of Jon Moxley going to rehab for, they didn't exactly call it alcohol addiction or abuse. They just said alcohol recovery. So I just don't want to, because this is such a sensitive topic, I don't want to mince my words and I don't want to leave anything to translation. I'm just using the exact words that are on there because I don't want to accidentally misspeak. But part of the big news is that he was pulled from the championship eliminator match. As of it's airing right now, literally as we are recording this episode. So I'm sure by now the audience knows who has replaced Jon Moxley, but it essentially kills the dream match that we are about to get of Daniel Bryan, Jon Moxley for who gets to go face Kenny Omega.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna run with this one first, Santi.
Go for it.
I am not gonna say I'm completely against people that, indulge in a beverage. I do often. But you could see, and I watch AEW regularly because I'm a massive Moxley fan. He has been very different over the last 4 weeks. I will say that. Yes, his entrance is aggressive. The Moxley character is aggressive. You almost kind of wonder if this is kind of him in character or if this is just him as a person. And Renee Young came out a couple of years ago saying what you get of Dean Ambrose or Jon Moxley is actually who you get at home. And he's been over the top lately. Like, he's ripping the gate open. He's literally hitting fans. Moxley's not in a good headspace. From someone that knows people that have been in very bad headspaces when it comes to alcohol abuse, Moxley's headspace, you can clearly see he's not there. He's not interested. He's not working safe. Some of these pushover matches that he's had over the last 3 weeks, I actually physically thought he hurt two of the guys. So Moxley's not in a good headspace, and all I am going to say is I really hope he gets himself better. He is a phenomenal performer. He has a lot left in his career, and I wish him nothing but the best and a quick recovery and health.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think you bring up a good point, like the divide of character and man, and I think this kind of goes with a lot of wrestlers, not just Moxley on this one. Like, we say kayfabe is dead, but sometimes it's hard to tell. Like, what is character? What are real life demons? What are real life problems? Honestly, like, I could have attributed to their newborn kid. Hey, maybe he's just not getting any sleep, but I would have never guessed something like, problems with alcohol, which just kind of goes to show, like, hey, like, walk a mile in a man's shoes before you start to judge or you start to make assumptions. We never know really what's going on in the brain or behind somebody's private closed doors. We can never make those full assumptions. What is interesting, and I'm curious in your thoughts on this, because Moxley gave the go-ahead to Tony Khan to talk about this and tweet it out. In my mind, that I don't know. I don't feel right about something like that just being divulged out. Like, like, to me, medical privacy is a big thing. So it's very interesting that AEW was very quick to let the fans know, and I know that they operate very much on transparency, exactly what's going on. I'm very curious how WWE would have handled this. I think it would have they probably would have asked him to work this show and written him off television. I feel like that's what WWE would have done.
Okay, so two on this one. Are you asking at all if this is a work?
No, I don't think that this is a work. No, I guess I'm asking your opinion more so on the way AEW is handling it with full transparency, telling the fans what's going on behind the curtain, a la style of like removing the curtain of the Wizard of Oz. Because WWE would never do this. Not a chance, because this damages his image with sponsors, with children, merchandise buyers. They would have written him off. Or if they didn't write him off, they would have just completely ignored his existence for a little while. I'm curious on your thoughts on how AEW decided to go about it.
So I agree with you in a sense that WWE would have done this completely different. AEW and Tony Khan is notoriously transparent. He does like the after show interviews, kind of like the UFC does. So obviously that opens up the proverbial fourth wall,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But I don't agree that WWE would have had him work and then written him off with an injury or something like that. When they put that policy in for the health and wellness policy, which a lot of wrestlers say is BS, they have shown that they are not going to put any wrestlers in a match, kind of like with what TNA did with Hardy when he was messed up and he was supposed to go against Sting and he was all messed up and they basically had who came out whoever was the producer at the time came out and like just told him get lost. I think they would have made up a storyline of Moxley got hurt working out in the gym, something really WWE-ish, like
Yeah.
something that's not very creative. Um, I like what Tony Khan did because it does make you really understand that these guys are still human.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I like that side of it. Do I like that it's just like, oh, okay, we're just gonna fill someone in? Like you said, we don't know who's going into that match. It's airing right now. I would have built it to Rampage and said, okay, we're gonna get two guys that have either been eliminated go into a match and actually storytell. And this is actually kind of interesting where we're going with this because I'm going to bring this back up again later. I would have gone into storytelling or done like a pop. Like if there was someone, God, just imagine Wyndham
Mm.
just is the Phil.
90-day complete non-compete clause is done.
Yeah, just imagine.
Yeah, I feel like that's setting up somebody that's hot for failure, either Wyndham or Daniel Bryan. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying because it does open up the possibility for that big pop. I personally just hope it goes to a workhorse like a Miro. I think that would be cool. But I'd like to go back to a point that you made that you don't think that they would make him work. I would think that somebody would disagree with you, and I think that somebody is CM Punk. I mean, like his whole gripes were that he was being forced to work with something as awful as a staph infection to go do the Royal Rumble, and all they did was just drug him up and hey, get out there, champ. The show must go on type of thing. But yeah, honestly, like I don't want to make assumptions. I just I feel like it's just such a complete contrast as to how WWE would have handled something like this. I feel like WWE would have been really focused on keeping things within the scope of wrestling, while AEW is more so like, hey, like this is real life, and sometimes real life takes precedence. It's just interesting.
But that's the two differences between WWE. You've got sports entertainment versus professional wrestling. And that is actually a great way to move into our segment of the WWE versus AEW conversation. Like here's I'm going to start it like this. This is our topic of the night. We are talking WWE versus AEW. Is this the new quote war? Now I'm going to put this to you. First question, are we even talking about the same thing when we're talking WWE versus AEW?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like hardcore fans like me and you, and people who are watching this podcast, and people who follow Dirt Sheets online would tell you that the war is on, baby. This is head-to-head, winner take all type of situation. If you step back and look at it just from an objective lens, you're not this hardcore wrestling fan. You are just sort of an outside looking in. To me, this is still the nation of Jamaica waging war on the United States of America. I still think that there's a giant disparity in terms of talent, in terms of global reach, in terms of existing audience, in terms of potential future audience. And I say that because AEW is just not the most child friendly, and that is a massive market. I mean, we can talk about TV deals, advertisements. I mean, at the end of the day, they both have deep pockets, but WWE has considerably deeper pockets. I don't think that this is a war yet. I think that this is more of a war than when TNA Impact tried to be like, we're also going on Monday nights. Psych, after 2 weeks, we're getting creamed. We're going back to Wednesdays. I do think that there is a lot more to discuss, but how do I put this? Think about it. Like, what was the AEW war that we were talking about just a couple months ago? It was AEW versus NXT. The fact that we were comparing AEW to WWE's developmental branch should tell you a lot. AEW is years, potentially a decade away from really being where WWE is at today. To us, they feel neck and neck, but realistically, they are not.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. I take a step back, and for one, we are looking at, do not take away from AEW. The talent that they have was just talent that really didn't fit, and I'm just going to say it didn't fit the mold at WWE. Like, WWE is for those people that are willing to kind of, put on that suit and tie and here's your script, brother. Like,
chug the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, chug the Kool-Aid, go for the brass ring, whatever. Let's not take away the talent that AEW has, but I do agree with you where you say another decade until
Seriously,
they can even really say we're going week in and week out with what I had growing up, running up and down stairs with 2 TVs on during commercial breaks.
I agree.
I had WCW upstairs on Nitro, and I would run downstairs with Raw. And my parents would be like, "You're crazy," And then luckily, Picture in Picture came in back in the day. Kids, Picture in Picture. It's kind of like what you're looking at here, but you had to pay premium for it back then. No, so you're completely right. We are looking at 2 very big companies with very deep pockets, with some with decent sponsors and some working on it. But at the end of the day, like, war-wise, this is like a childhood, like high school bullying right now.
Yeah. And I mean, like, when I say a decade away, I really do mean a decade away from major organizations like a Fox being like, shit, do we throw $1 billion at WWE or do we throw $1 billion at AEW? We don't matter. This hardcore wrestling fan base, we don't matter. We're loud, but we're a loud minority. And I think we need to recognize that. And because we are a loud minority, sometimes we like to tell ourselves that we are boosting AEW really like to the very top of the top. But let's get back to reality for a second. Let's break it down bit by bit. Let's maybe talk things that are more directly comparable, like, let's say, direct talent pool. Where do you stand on AEW compared to WWE in terms of quality of talent?
There is only one. No, I will take that away. There are 2 people in AEW. Yeah, 2 people in AEW that would walk into WWE and be main event WrestleMania ready tomorrow. That is Kenny Omega, and that is Hangman Page. Those are the only 2 that come into
Daniel
WWE.
Bryan?
No, Daniel, no.
He just
Daniel
main
Bryan,
evented. He's what?
Daniel Bryan didn't. Okay, you know how I feel about Daniel Bryan.
Okay, but I know you don't like the guy, but how is he?
Listen,
okay, all right.
Listen, technically, he's a great wrestler. Can he cut a promo? No.
Yes, he can. Okay. All right. Sorry. Go on with your lies and your deception.
He cannot cut a promo. The only way he cut a promo was with the crowd and the "woe is me, you're a B+ player." That was all WWE creative giving him that opportunity, that platform, because it was feeding to the irony that really, yes, you're a good technical wrestler, but you're better in pro wrestling, not sports entertainment. Daniel Bryan is not a main event guy at WWE anymore, and that's why they pretty much wrote him off TV. And he went where the pasture was greener for him. And he's putting on great matches. But really, what? Come on.
Steve, I want to gouge my eyes out at what you just said.
Okay.
Literally. Anyways.
No, go on.
So,
rebuttal.
I mean, what rebuttal do you are saying that the man that main evented WrestleMania 8 months ago is not WrestleMania main event worthy?
We also had Edge. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so much so that the fans weren't on board with Edge versus Roman, so they threw Daniel Bryan in there. Okay, look, we both know you're delusional on this one. And that AEW has 3. And maybe potentially 4 if we can see Punk getting back into the swing of things. But right now, in terms of like raw talent and skill and overall showmanship, I would say that there's 3.
But if we went back to what we talked about last week with the 4 pillars that we put in for someone to be a main eventer, a top guy, potentially on the Mount Rushmore of whatever, does Bryan go there in 10 years? No. We're talking about guys that are potentially going to lead the business. The Seth Rollins, the Roman Reigns right now. I don't really count McIntyre because really he never got to go over, unfortunately, due to COVID. But he's still there. Like, if I was to add anyone else from AEW, I'd bring Britt Baker over. I would love to see Britt in this form against Charlotte, against Becky. You tell me if Charlotte's going to take a bump on thumbtacks twice in a year.
Okay.
Never.
Okay, so let's keep the conversation going about talent. You're saying that there's 2, there's really 3 talent that could main event WrestleMania. I mean, that's kind of telling because WWE has a lot of guys that could main event WrestleMania. Now, it's also funny that we are comparing the two's pinnacle to a WWE show. Does that not further go to show you how much higher WWE is right now? Anyways, I digress. Let's continue talking about talent pool. I would say that if we are comparing NXT to AEW wins. And I feel like by a healthy margin also. NXT has some amazing talent and they're doing a great job of building up these new guys that I thought was going to be a complete sham like Braun Breaker. But then you go beyond the curtain of AEW and the SmackDown roster is insane. The Raw roster is insane. There's a reason why they have to split these 2 shows and why organizations like NBC's USA Network and Fox's Fox Sports are paying $8 billion to have this talent on their TV screens. Okay? There's a reason for that. And anyone that tells you that AEW has the better roster is lying to themselves. They are. I really think that they're putting on blinders and not recognizing that WWE has the superior roster by a factor of 10.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you because you look at, even if you actually go back to this year's draft which happened just a couple of weeks ago, when they announced how the draft was happening, it was the first time you've ever heard that the sponsors and the corporate people in those head offices had decisions on who went to what show. And then you go back further and you talk about SummerSlam with the return of Brock and Becky, and Fox had a heyday. Oh, sorry, no, other way around. NBC had no, USA had the heyday because they didn't get the better talent coming over to Raw. And they had a huge heyday. And like, that's when you started hearing rumblings about a draft coming. Yes, the draft happens normally at the end of the season, whatever. But it was the first time you actually heard that these big corporations outside of WWE had influence on how the draft went. And that just shows like, okay, what is AEW's biggest pay-per-view? Double or Nothing?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that still a thing? I'm
Yeah.
not
Oh,
too
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. No, it's Double or Nothing. It's Double or Nothing.
How now? Okay, I know they just released the pay-per-view schedule for next year, and it's actually the fewest amount of pay-per-views for WWE in a long time. But there are also the Saudi events that weren't named either. But AEW does what, five pay-per-views in a year?
Yeah, but AEW also does these, which I personally love, these like made for TV special shows that feel like pay-per-views, like the one at Arthur Ashe Stadium, which had Kenny Omega versus Daniel Bryan. They do those fairly regularly. So I mean, in my like those sort of feel like mini pay-per-views if we're playing loose with the definition of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, but my point being is there's still money being thrown at getting these events. These cities pay for WWE. They buy the right for, okay, like Los Angeles bought WrestleMania for,
Yeah.
They wanted it for the new stadium. Unfortunately, they didn't get it because of COVID at the time. Oh no, it was supposed to be New York, and then it was going to go to LA.
Yeah,
but anyways,
yeah, it's in LA SoFi Stadium this coming year.
Yeah, so they paid for that because they wanted the new stadium. And you look at this and you don't really hear too many people saying, you know what, like, don't worry about SummerSlam or even whatever the Money in the Bank is. We're going to go get Double or Nothing, and we're going to put it in New Jersey in a 68,000 person stadium. It's not happening. It's not going to happen for a very long time. I don't care if you put CM Punk versus Kenny Omega versus Daniel Bryan in a triple threat for the world title. That's only one match. That's not selling out a weekend.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair point, right? Like, I mean, as much as like, it sucks talking corporate sponsors and talking, suits. If we want to use a derogatory term for business people, they play a major role. They play a massive major role. And what we're saying is that AEW doesn't have those corporate suits after them yet because they just don't have the talent roster, and they don't have the overall global reach and appeal that WWE has. Okay, so we've talked roster a little bit. We've talked a little bit about corporate appeal and corporate demand. I mean, let's talk futures, because I feel like that's where a lot of people are sort of hedging their bets and putting their bets on AEW because they see WWE as this declining stock, this blockbuster, and they see AEW as the Netflix circa 2004. Right? If you could go back in time, you toss all your money into Netflix, and it's a no-brainer. Are we going to see something similar to this with AEW? And let's give them a healthy period. Let's say 10 years. Where do you see AEW versus WWE in 10 years in terms of their overall market share?
Okay. I'm living in fantasy world, but I have one word for you. Legacy.
Okay.
WWE has legacy. Look who is being molded to be the next Vince. Shane's out. Shane doesn't want to do it. He's openly said it. Hunter is creatively just as good, if not, look what he did with NXT, a little bit better than Vince currently. Granted, hopefully his health stays together. But if you have Hunter at the helm, with creative behind him. Hopefully Bruce Pritchard stays around. They bring in a little bit of better creative. Legacy and repetition. It's just like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you build yourself up, your body learns, right? Unfortunately, the only people that are running AEW right now is Fulham's football owner until Tony Khan. Oh, sorry, and the Jaguars, which he's the bank. And then you have the Young Bucks. Oh, there you go. The
The
Young
Young
Bucks.
Bucks.
The Young Bucks. There you go. You've got the Young Bucks. You have Cody Rhodes. And you have a couple other hands in the pot. What I see in 10 years is WCW 2.0 with too many chefs in the kitchen with creative control. And if Tony Khan doesn't put a lid on this real quick, he is going to have a sinking ship where Vince and Hunter are going to come in and be like, we'll buy your talent, and it's just going to be another thing to add on the network.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it does come down to, like, you can have an amazing show, you can have an amazing roster, but if the business is crumbling within itself, like WCW did, there nothing can save it. Just absolutely nothing can save it. You can have 5-star matches all day, but if the business isn't working from the inside, it's going to get destroyed on the outside. That is interesting. I know for a fact that there were some news a couple of months ago, I believe, that Tony Khan has taken more of absolute being the absolute booker, as opposed to taking, advice from Young Bucks and Cody. He seems to be the one that is making the final decision. My understanding is that AEW wrestlers have a lot of input into their character and what they'd like to see, but at the end of the day, it is Tony Khan making that final call as to who is going over, who's getting the championship, who's being main events. I think that's a good step towards not being WCW 2.0, because, like you said, too many hands in the pot. You can't have a clear vision. When you don't have a clear vision, you don't know where you're going. WWE succeeded the way it did because it was all Vince McMahon. Nothing went through WWE unless it was Vince McMahon okaying it. You didn't become big in WWE unless Vince McMahon okayed it. There's a couple of random examples where the fans boosted somebody, but it's all Vince McMahon. And as much as we hate that now as hardcore wrestling fans, Vince is just not in tune with what people like. First of all, are you really going to tell a multi-billionaire how to do his business? I think he's doing pretty well. And second of all, are you really going to tell the granddaddy of building the biggest wrestling company how to run a wrestling company? The man knows what he's doing. We feel like he doesn't. And maybe he, to the hardcore fans, it feels like he is losing that connection. But WWE keeps turning more and more profitable quarters. We need to see that from AEW for it to be a long-term viable investment for large organizations like USA Network, like ESPN, for as an example. Because, I mean, they're not going to put they're not going to put their money into a place that isn't being run properly, that doesn't have that person that can just be the hammer of the place. I would like to see AEW, like Tony Khan, be that guy. I mean, the man is wildly successful. I say that, but his NFL team is the worst NFL team of the past 20 years, and his soccer team can't stay in the Prem for more than one season. So maybe he isn't the best at running organizations. Who knows? But at the very least, he's a giant wrestling fan. But we'll see. Can a giant fan be the next Vince McMahon? Can that be the person to turn this little guerrilla organization into a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate like WWE? I don't even think 10 years is enough, frankly.
No, I don't either. And you actually made a point there, and I want to jump back to it. You said in WWE, Vince has put everyone over that he feels is going to be a success, and most of them have been. The fans have pushed a couple to make them, get their push. Look where two of them are right now. They are the staples in AEW, Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. So I just want to put that out there. So I will go one more on that with AEW and Tony Khan. The one thing you can give them is their fan loyalty. Like AEW fans, every time I watch Dynamite, every time I watch Rampage, I feel like I'm watching WWE fans from the late 90s, early 2000s. They're engaged, they're standing, they're like, there's emotion. It feels like, well, the sound's not filtered in. Like sometimes you you wonder, like with WWE, like you're watching, I don't know, Austin Theory versus who
Dominic
Austin Theory,
Mysterio.
and like people are going off at the match, and I'm like, this is a horrible match, and
Yeah,
nobody cares.
no, I've
And the
been to
fans
live
are going
shows.
crazy,
Yeah.
and I'm like, come on, that's got to be forced in. You know what I mean? So I know we're out of COVID times, but like we still got to get some extra sound boosted in there every now and again, right? But no, I agree with you. I don't think 10 years is enough. But I still stick to my point. In 10 years, I think AEW is owned by WWE, and there's a lot of disgruntled employees, just like they came over from WCW, and maybe they'll find a way to coexist where like WWE owns it, but is still separate. It's almost like a silent one.
Yeah, ECW just entered the chat, buddy. That's not gonna happen. But okay, so here's where I have a little bit of hesitation to agree with you. Look, if Impact Wrestling is still a thing and it's still not owned by WWE, and I mean, you want to talk about an organization that was run to the ground by poor management. It's doing fantastic right now. Like in terms of its how it's being run, it's probably doing its best it's ever been. But look at Impact Wrestling. The talent that they had, all right, they were the hardcore darling. Oh my, we are sick of this John Cena guy they're trying to shove down our throat. Come watch the Wrestling Machine, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe. Come watch the next best up-and-comers, AJ Styles and Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. We got the X Division over here. Kind of sounds a lot like a lot of the guys that AEW has, doesn't it, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before. And the example that you gave of too many hands in the pot, which was the downfall of WCW, was damn near the downfall of TNA. It sure as shit was the reason why they never became a thing. But it's incredible to me that TNA survived all of this. But that is the reason TNA was not able to catapult and go beyond Spike TV. Could that be what happens to AEW? I don't know.
You just hit on the point I was going to. The only reason TNA did survive, Impact. Yeah,
same TNA thing. Impact, yeah, same thing.
Is Spike TV.
Yeah.
The money Spike TV pumped into that business. Granted, Dixie Carter, she's got tons of money, whatever, she's doing her thing. Dixie Carter doesn't know how to run a wrestling division. Come on, man. Like, let's be real. She brought in the talent that was suggested. And again, like I said, like you said, too many hands in the pot. We've seen this movie before. They are lucky that they were still above water.
You want to see another interesting comparison? So the reason Spike TV was so adamant about pumping money into TNA and keeping that thing alive was because a couple years prior, they lost Monday Night Raw to USA Network.
Yep.
Spike TV was the home of Monday Night Raw, and they lost. I mean, back then Raw was pulling in 4+ million viewers. It was insane. So they're trying to fill that void with more wrestling, but just the way that the organization was being run was just horrible. Who is the network behind AEW right now? That would be Turner Networks, TNT, TBS, all owned by ya boy that used to basically run WCW, Ted Turner. So, I mean, I'm not saying that could be a downfall. I think it's an interesting correlation to see here. I know that wrestling fans do not like to talk suits, but it matters. It matters who is backing your organization, and the organization that is backing AEW right now has a really bad history of letting great wrestling shows go to shit.
And again, it's billionaire Ted with potentially a sour taste in his mouth from how everything went down because he couldn't run a wrestling business. And he just wants to see if somebody else can put the arrow right in between Vince McMahon's proverbial black heart. And he thinks he's put his money into Tony Khan. Yeah. And honestly, at this point, we're not even talking about wrestling. We're talking about massive corporations trying to one up each other.
Yeah.
And who's got the bigger package downstairs? You know what I mean? And Vince is always going to win. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? Like, it's interesting that this conversation of AEW versus WWE, is this the next war? We went into financial sponsors and TV networks. That is what determines who wins the war. It is actually not who puts on the better show. It is not who puts on 7 out of 5 matches via Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer. It is who is bringing home the bacon at the end of the day. And the biggest determining factors of those of that bar that we're setting is these giant players that sit as an auxiliary around the wrestling organization, not necessarily just the wrestling organization itself. All right, Steve, I feel like we've talked a little bit too much about money, even though that's what wins the war. The Monday Night Wars were about money. They were about ratings, all this. So let's move away from that for a second. And let's talk about what you would like to see from AEW, let's say the next 12 months, and what you'd like to see from WWE in the next 12 months. I'll give you a second to think.
Oh, I got it.
You got it? All right, let's hear it.
I'm glad we went this way because it is my biggest comparison to the difference between WWE and AEW. I hate going back to sports entertainment and professional wrestling. The one place that AEW lacks is storyline. It seems... I'll just give you an example. Aleister Black. Malachi Black. He has attacked like 27 different people in the past 2 months. And it's just, okay, he's this dark presence that has a wicked kick and does really good work in the ring. But there's no story. Like, there's no build up to it. There's nothing. Like, look, CM Punk, he's 5-0 and he's beaten nobody. There's no storyline. You don't know where he's going with this. Really, minus the pop, I think CM Punk has been an absolute flop in AEW. You look at, okay, you've got the Daniel Bryan, Kenny Omega thing. You knew it was going to be a world-class match, but there was no... That's a WrestleMania-worthy match. You can have that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said it.
It's a WrestleMania-worthy match. Who was in that?
I didn't say main event.
Fair enough. All right. I thought I had you in a gotcha moment. I thought I had you in a gotcha moment.
I did not say main event. I said it's a WrestleMania-worthy match.
I thought I had you in a gotcha moment.
Actually, you know where I would put that match? Start of the card. All WrestleMania, right. Start of the card. But I'm just saying, there's no build-up. There's no storyline. Hell, everybody knew Ruby Soho was going to be the Joker in that random poker chip on a pole match or whatever it was. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's predictable. You don't know who's going to be fighting who the next week. It's almost like, actually, it's very much almost like Impact. Like, you're going to have a match. You're going to have CM Punk versus Darby Allin. Here you go. There's no build up to it. Don't you prefer it with WWE where, you get that little... Okay, 3 weeks ago, Becky cut a promo. And she mentioned Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
She mentioned Liv Morgan, but that was it. And then social media started plugging it. Oh, Becky mentioned Liv in a promo. That was weird. But she also mentioned other people that were a little less relevant, but we know that the fans want to see Liv get a push. And then Monday night, Becky's cutting a promo in the back. It's like, who else is going to come at me? And Liv, all she had to do was step in the shot. That is good storytelling. That's good leading up to a match. It's not Survivor Series worthy yet because we're not going to get that match. We're going to pretty much get Becky, Charlotte, if Charlotte doesn't drop the title on a random SmackDown and get punished for what happened. But that Becky Liv makes more sense than Bianca Belair's 7th title chance in the last 3 months. You know what I mean? So back to your original question, they need to build. They need to storytell. They really need to get, quote, creative. And that's it for me.
See, and I feel like that's where people, the AEW fans, would say, hell no. Keep that sports entertainment crap away from my AEW. So it's interesting that's the approach that you're taking, because it seems like the majority sentiment, and again I say majority, but we're really a loud minority, from wrestling fans, seems to be that Raw needs to focus less, and SmackDown needs to focus less on the sports entertainment aspect, and just try and focus more on in-ring work, and giving us more unique matches, not Happy Corbin versus Shinsuke Nakamura for 7 straight weeks. But then, but they're wrong. Like, then if we don't have that sports entertainment aspect, we don't have head of the table Roman Reigns. We don't have the man Becky Lynch. We don't have the plastic bitch that we have right now with Charlotte Flair. Like, we just don't. We need to have this spectacle to care about the characters. That is actually one of my gripes with AEW, in terms of the matches that they're putting on. Like, they're bangers. Like, there are dudes whose names I don't even yet know that will go on AEW Dark on YouTube and like are putting on stellar matches. No one here on this podcast is saying that AEW does not have better matches than WWE. I mean, like, I think pound for pound in terms of match quality, AEW's got it. But do I care about all of those matches and about all of the characters that are on screen? No, because it's missing that sports entertainment aspect that WWE is, I was going to say, so good at. Sometimes they're awful with it. But when they're good at it, my God, they're good at it. My God, they're good at it. All right, they can quickly turn an irrelevant nobody. It's gonna sound funny that I'm calling him an irrelevant nobody. They can turn an irrelevant character like Bobby Lashley and make him the scariest, most dominant person on the roster. And how did they do that? Was it with his in-ring work? A little bit. But no, it was with the mouthpiece that they put alongside him. It was with the new it was with the new entrance music. It was with the wearing of the suits, right? Like it was the showmanship that turned Lashley into this, like, oh my God, I cannot believe they fumbled on Lashley, into like, yo, Lashley could main event Mania, and he quasi did. He had the title main event against McIntyre, but can AEW do that is my question. It seems to me that the only way that you can rise to the top of AEW is to be the best worker on the planet. Think about like some of the people who have held the belt and some of the people who are like the main eventers on AEW. It is Kenny Omega, it's Moxley, it's Jericho, it's Daniel Bryan, it's Hangman Page. But at the end of the day, like, do they have those characters that go beyond the mat? They've got a couple. MJF is the one. MJF is
greatest heel on television right now.
Yeah. I need more MJF. I need more characters like MJF in AEW. I guarantee you that they have guys on there that could cut stellar promos, that could have fantastic backstage segments. And I just don't think that they're letting them loose like they have with MJF. And if they did that, I would care more.
Yeah, you mentioned 5 people there. You mentioned Omega, Moxley, Jericho, Bryan, and Hangman. What do 3 of those... Okay, 4 of those 5. I'm going to say 3. 3 of those 5 have in common.
Been in Sorry, rhetorical question. Go.
They've been in WWE. They all have played different versions of themselves. And the other one is Kenny Omega, who is a character in his own. Kenny Omega we will never be graced with Kenny Omega in WWE. We know that. But Kenny Omega has such a cult following that he's been able to build his character and almost become one of the sports entertainers. He can cut a wicked promo. He knows how to alter his character. He can be a heel, he can be a face, and he can tell a story without trying to force it down your throat. Jericho, how many versions of Jericho have we seen since the year 2000?
Jericho's the greatest gimmick of all time. Just Jericho himself. He's the greatest. He's the greatest human gimmick of all time.
Perfect. And then we've got Moxley as well. Granted, he was not much of a talker with the Shield. He was actually supposed to be the head of the Shield at the start. Bet you didn't know that one. He was supposed to be the head of the Shield at the start. They realized he's not really that good on the mic. But after he returned from his staph infection, we didn't really get Dean Ambrose. We got a guy named Dean Ambrose, but we started to see the re-envisioned Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley character is out of this world for me. He is you'll never get another Stone Cold, but for me, he's a balanced brawler like Stone Cold, lunatic like Brian Pillman. And I think both of those are a wicked recipe for good storytelling. You know?
It almost sounds like AEW just needs more WWE guys. Maybe we'll get Kevin Owens in 3 months. Maybe we will get Brian I was gonna say Rotunda. Wyndham Rotunda. Bray Wyatt. Maybe we'll get Bray Wyatt soon. Maybe we'll get Buddy Murphy. Like, look, AEW is fantastic. It really is. I love AEW. It sounds like we're shitting on it. We're not. If anything, like, we're criticizing. You criticize what you like, right? Because you want to see it become better. Which is why I hate WWE. You also hate the ones you love the most. But maybe it does take having more of those WWE guys who have taken promo classes like they have to in WWE on a regular basis, who understand camera work and understand, something as basic as, I don't know, like how to make pyro, being around pyro. Like, it just reminds me of like that terrible Kenny Omega. We're not going to talk about that. It seems like we're just shitting on AEW here. But like, maybe we do need more of that WWE influence, more guys coming over to AEW so that we get more of that spectacle and that show. Because, again, as much as I love technical wrestling, and when they are in the ring, I want to see a 5-star match. Yes. But the wrestling show goes beyond what happens in the mat. It goes beyond that. It really does. And that is where I think AEW is struggling. And that was going to be my answer. Is I would actually love to see them grab more WWE guys. I would love to see them put more effort into their backstage segments, and I would love to finally see them put a little bit more effort into their women's wrestling. Somebody that is not named Britt Baker, please. Like, their women put on amazing matches, but they only seem to get pay-per-view time. They never seem to get weekly TV show time. And if they do, it's very little. Women's wrestling can be amazing. WWE has proved that, and Impact Wrestling has proved that. I would say Impact has the greatest women's roster on the planet right now. AEW is missing that, and I would love to see them add they have good women on the roster, but they're just not highlighting them very well. I already forgot Ruby Soho was on the roster.
Come on, Ruby Soho was in that little, actually it was a shoot promo with Punk last week with what's his name that comes with Moxley. Oh God, what's his name? Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, Eddie Kingston.
Ruby Soho was one of the officials that came in and held Eddie back.
We need more of that. We need more of that.
We do need more of that, but you don't build a character like they did with Ruby Soho with all those.
I see what you mean.
You don't go, Ruby Soho is going to come in and battle Britt Baker and take the title potentially, and then go, no, we're just going to make sure she can hold someone back in the backseat. Would you see? Okay, perfect example. You've got a huge brawl, a lumberjack match or something like that. You got a women's lumberjack match. You got Charlotte Flair versus Sasha Banks in a lumberjack match, okay?
Lumberjill.
The Lumberjill match. Who is the only women's wrestler in that division not around the ring? Becky.
Becky, yeah.
Why? Because you don't bury top talent. And what they did with Ruby Soho that night was burying top talent, who they tried to push as top talent. Now, to go back to one thing you mentioned about bringing WWE people over, who are two people, and this is one I want you to answer, that are very over in WWE. One's a female, one's a male, but they never get that full pop from the crowd.
I don't know. I feel like WWE's got a lot of those. Like Cesaro comes to mind. Big E still sort of comes to mind. McIntyre kind of comes to mind. Who are you thinking?
The people I'm talking about are Bianca and Finn. Bodies of work, they are excellent workers. Would they be fucking over in AEW? Putting on 5-star matches? Absolutely. But what about character development? When Bianca grabs the mic, do you just go, oh, here we go? No, honey, I go here now. Like, you can't say the same thing over and over and over and over. It gets dry, it gets boring, and then you gotta go back to talent and say, what am I doing wrong to get myself to that next level? Finn, the same thing. Finn's as over as they come, but I was a Universal Champion. I want my championship title back. It's been 3 years, man. Move on. 4 years. Move on. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like you lost an ex-girlfriend and you're still talking about it. This is if they went to AEW, they would be as over as they come. But I'm just saying, like, this is what your point is. Yes, we need to take certain talent from WWE, but you need to make sure they are 85 to 90% of that package to make your brand bigger.
Yeah.
Bringing over CM Punk admitted that he hadn't even hit the ropes 2 days after he debuted. Like, come on. Like, that's what's wrong with AEW. Like, you've got guys, you're getting big talent. Kevin Owens coming over to AEW. God, I don't want to see it because I love Kevin Owens and I want to see him on another title run in WWE. But Kevin Owens in AEW, oh my God. The man can go heel. He can compete against MJF when you put him on the mic. He can work. And he has character development skills. He can build something different. So, yeah, Kevin Owens is a marquee for the next 5 years if he goes to AEW.
Yeah.
WWE, he might be shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think long-winded. What I'm trying to get at is, like, if they're going to get guys from WWE, I think it needs to be those guys that are the showmen, right? I don't you're gonna get Pops bringing over a Cesaro, sure, but like that's just another great worker. It's not somebody who's telling a story. It's not somebody who is grander than life. I mean, I think a great example would be, Finn Balor. When he doesn't go Fiend, like a lot of us just, he's very like vanilla AEW, if you sort of think about it. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. Like I said, we kind of spent these last like 40 minutes just ripping on AEW. I do kind of feel bad towards that. I just want to clarify, like, we like AEW. Yes. We really do. But I also want to knock it down from this pedestal of internet wrestling fans that think it's like the bee's knees. No, AEW has problems. AEW is not going to supplant WWE this year, next year, the year after, in the 20s. No, like we're thinking like 30s, 40s. If it can last that long is when it's going to supplant WWE. The only thing really that could perhaps bring WWE The only thing that could cause AEW to beat WWE within the next 10 years is WWE shooting itself in the foot or something horrible happening like a Benoit 2.0. That could bring like terrible press and terrible news where sponsors are pulling out. Again, we're talking sponsors, people, because they matter. They absolutely do matter. The only way this happens within the next 10 years is if something that happens within WWE forces these sponsors and forces these large organizations to pull contracts, forces Saudi Arabia to pull out. That's what would bring the needle back, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And so we're talking 30s or 40s for that needle to really be back where it needs to be. Steve, I don't have any additional thoughts. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to this topic before we wrap it up?
No, I was just about to do a shoot on Saudi Arabia. As much as we love the Saudi events, we wouldn't mind seeing those not happen anymore. But no, I think the one thing I can say, just to back AEW a little bit, we did mention about quality of work and quality of matches. And if you go back over the last year to 18 months and you put side by side this match versus this match, AEW has more 4.5, 5-star matches than WWE has. And I'm even putting in Bad Bunny at WrestleMania as one of the closest things to a 4.5-star match. That and that says something. You know, you can have marquee and you can have build up, but you and I talked off air the other day about AJ versus, no, we actually talked about it last week on the show. AJ versus Shinsuke. On paper, that is a 5-star match, and it was a dud. You get Kenny versus Jericho. You get Darby versus oh shit, I can't think of who Darby went up against. I can't remember the name. Part of Jericho's faction. Young Mexican guy. I can't remember his name.
Sammy Guevara.
Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara puts on 4.5-star matches. I don't care what. He's incredible. Would he go over in WWE? Never. He's too small. He's not what Vince looks for. Here's
what's interesting. We got to wrap it up, but here's what's interesting about what you just said. Look, if AEW puts on a dud in the ring, it's a problem. It's an absolute problem. We can look about how it got the Kenny Omega versus John Moxley got clowned because of just that terrible ending. The show gets clowned if it's bad in ring work. If there's bad in ring work in WWE, the hardcore clown it. But at the end of the day, no one cares because there was a story that was told. Right? There were payoffs. There are things that you care about that are, that are going to be talked about in the next week, in the next show, in the next episode, because that's the showmanship aspect of it. You can salvage a quote unquote bad match or a match that isn't amazing. And when they don't do good storytelling and they do have a bad match, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, that's when you have your duds in WWE. But you can have bad matches in WWE and you can still be fully invested and care tremendously. And that's because of that sports entertainment aspect.
100%. All right, Santi. So starting next week, I think we're going into episode 3. I know we got to wrap it up here. So episode 3 of Straight Shoot, a wrestling podcast, we are going into the greatest factions of all time, and we are not strictly making this WWE. We are going global. We can do WCW, TNA, New Japan, WWE, whomever. And please feel free to throw it in the comments in the YouTube or the Discord who you feel are your top factions. I know there's going to be a lot of debate over this, because there are some factions that, were they actually that great, or was it very good timing? So that's going to be our discussion for next week. Santi, thank you so much for tonight. I think we got a lot. And again, one more time, guys, we're not trying to shit on AEW here. We're just saying they are a small fish in a very big pond with a lot of food around. They just need to eat a little bit more, and maybe they'll grow. So that's all. That's my final word on AEW.
Yeah. Next week's episode, guys, top factions. I'm going to spend the entirety of the hour and a half talking about Retribution, greatest faction of all time. Steve, where can the people find you?
Once again, guys, you guys can find me on Instagram, Twitch, .tv, and Twitter, all Mr. Tesh. I will caption them this week in the video and in the profile. Santi, where can they find you?
They can find me over on twitch.tv/SantiZap. You can also find me over on our Discord. The Discord link will be in the description of this video. Pop on over, join the general chat, join the wrestling discussion section. That is where we're grabbing the majority of our questions. If you don't want to pop over to the Discord, but you still want to be part of the community and ask questions, you can do so right here on the YouTube comments. Feel free to do so. But we'll leave it there. That was a lot of fun. About an hour and a half of content for y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Take care, my friends. Have a good one.